Hello, good evening. Welcome to The Art of Film. I'm your host, Andres Salazar. Today's episode, we're going to talk about a wonderful Western film called The Wild Bunch. And perhaps, since this is a Western, I should wear my new Stetson. Let's see if we can do this. Actually, this might be too distracting. Let's see if I can pull this off. Is this too distracting for you guys? Welcome to this midnight performance. You know, I record these at midnight for like the midnight showing of films. Fortunately, you guys can watch this at 9 a.m. So it doesn't really work that way for YouTube, but that's okay. Wild Bunch is a film, a brilliant Western created in 1969. It feels very 70s, and I'll explain why in a minute. This is considered a revisionist Western film in that it's not a classic white hat, black hat, where your main character, a la, John Wayne would lead the troops and, conquer the bad guys. And I don't think this movie is not talked in the same reverence as, say, The Searchers or High Noon or Cowboys, something like that. But Wild Bunch is brilliant, and it was critically acclaimed. Revisionist, meaning really, going back to that term, is it's a lot more muddied, a lot more gray, and in that way a little more 70s. The protagonist may be, in fact, in this case, is criminals. So we're kind of going into the kind of the darker, seedier, rougher life of a cowboy, of a robber, of these kind of characters. And in this era where we're having this transition from the West, as we know it, to a more civilized early 19th century. So you now have the event of the car, right, which is a prominent element of the film. And so you have the aging cowboys leaving the world, and now there's this new crop, new technology, new world, and yet they still are the Wild Bunch. This group of people who live very much hand to mouth, in a very violent and visceral way. And in that way, again, it's got that grimy 70s kind of feel to it. Although it's 69, this is what kind of brings those films like you would think of, like, French Connection and Taxi Driver and things like that. This is precursoring that. Just initial thoughts and feelings about the film. A really fun film. It's long. It's 2.5 hours long. But it doesn't feel that long. I mean, there's some major acts where there's a whole section of the film where it's basically in Mexico with the main with this character Mapache, and Mapache is this kind of self-anointed general of a Mexican kind of bandito squad that go around pillaging and kind of taking shots at Pancho Villa and, in theory, controlling northern Mexico. So there's a section dealing with that, and these characters are they're straddling that line between, actually they're not even straddling the line between good and bad. They're pretty much villains. They are robbers and killers, and people die in this film. The film opens with these characters, Ernest Borgnine, William Holden, Robert Ryan, all these characters. This Wild Bunch are robbing this office of the railroad company. And so they're dressed as army officials. They go in and rob the place. And it is a wonderful set piece. This film, The Wild Bunch, has wonderful set pieces. That first scene, it's a great action scene of a good 15, maybe 20 minutes. Probably 15 minutes. Wonderful choreography and things happening. And so you have them as this group of outlaws, and then you have a former outlaw working with these pack of non-disciplined hyena-like scoundrels, bounty hunters that are chasing this outlaw who he's working for, the railroad company, and he's an ex-con, and he knows, the main character. The main character is named Pike, and Thornton, who's the antagonist, I guess you would say, in the film, is chasing him. So it's a bit of this chase film. And throughout the film, we really get the perspective of what it's like to live in this world. There's a lot of shots of children and elderly and those marginalized groups, the collateral damage. I mean, we see women get shot, kids get, people are getting hurt in this. And that's what's really kind of cool about it. Again, maybe kind of that revisionist Western kind of flavor. Not deconstruction, which would be more like, Unforgiven, which basically breaks down all the tropes of a Western and then rebuilds it. This one doesn't do quite that much change, but really interesting look on using camera, using scenes and shots to evoke commentary on society, the trials of living in that world. So the plot is this. A band of outlaws trying to rob a bank, trying to do these heists, lose out, are fleeing, go into Mexico, find this opportunity to work for this General Mapache who needs guns to fight Pancho Villa. They go to rob a train to get the guns, to sell to Mapache, to get the money. Meanwhile, Pike is being chased by a former associate, Thornton, with his pack of mongrels following them. And there are these elements of these themes of honor, kind of the honor among thieves, and a man's word, is important. And this hat's getting hot. We're going to take that off right now for a little bit. I did 7 minutes. That's pretty good. So, so there's these themes of honor, and who you give your word to is important. There's a section in the film which actually kind of hinges a lot of it. There's a side character, one of Pike's band's name's Angel. He's a Mexican, and he sees kind of the devastation and the pain that Mapache has been given his little pueblo, his little village. And so he decides to kind of take matters in his own hands, shoots and kills an ex-fiancée who was kind of like one of Mapache's concubines or whores, and really gets himself in some freaking hot water. And so we see how their little crew deal with that. Do they just let him go off on his own devices? Do they kind of rein him in? Is every man their own, master? Really interesting kind of ideas and concepts. It's really good. It really is well done and highly regarded. This was entered into the Library of Congress, as an important piece of work. It won numerous awards. Let me just go through my notes and make sure I didn't miss anything. Towards the end, and again, kind of the 70s feel I'm talking about, they do this last stand where Angel gets captured by Mapache, and they decide, after spending the night with some whores and seeing there's a scene where after Pike sleeps with this young girl, 20s. Here's the baby that's crying on the ground next to the bed that they just made love in. Sees the baby and sees her, throws the coin to her for payment. And you just see this idea of this is the world that they're in, and this is kind of the hardness they have to be. And in this moment, he decides, I'm going to go and I'm going to get Angel because I'm a man of my word, or maybe I don't belong in this world anymore, or the world is changing, or he just decides like this is the time to do it. So the last four to have this like last stand, and they got this great shot of them walking into basically this little plaza full of Mexican troops and Mapache's men, and they just do a freaking shootout and just murder everybody, and they get murdered. And so again, everyone's dying in this film at the end. Spoiler alert. Thornton comes in, sees the devastation. His hyenas go and start looting the bodies, and he's he's got that kind of reserved solemnness to him as he sees an old colleague, friend, dead. And it's a fascinating film. Yeah, it's actually really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend taking a look at this film. As far as rating this goes, I mean, I really like The Searchers. I wouldn't say this is above that. I would say, actually, though, this is it is right up there. I mean, I think Butch and the Sundance Kid, stuff like that. This would be up there with that. I really like True Grit, even both versions. I might like this one more. I think I like Unforgiven more than this, and Tombstone more than this, but I like this more than High Noon. And I like this more than some of the other Clint Eastwood stuff, maybe more than Josie Wales or Pale Rider. I don't know. Think about it. Part of it, too, is that it's that dynamic of the team, right? It's like, do you want to read, Superman, or do you want to read Justice League, right? It's like, do you want to read the team book? And so the team group, that's kind of fun of the dynamic of these characters, whereas some of those, like Eastwood films, he's the lone man. So a little different in that regard, I guess. That's it. That's the review. I think it's a very well done film. Go see it if you haven't seen it. If you've seen it, go see it again. Go check it out. And let me know what you think in the comments. And we'll have some more videos coming every, Tuesdays and Saturdays, and then sometimes on Thursdays. Thank you very much for joining me this evening, and have a great rest of your evening. Take care, guys. Bye.